I was just mentioning that it's a delight to do a breakout session after having done a keynote, because I can trust most of you have seen the intro stuff, so I'm going to be diving in a bit. And also, if you happen to see Sue's talk just previous, that's like, oh, that's making my life easier again. But what I wanted to do is, there's still some, terminology and theory stuff, but I'm going to try to take the stuff that I was showing this morning and get as practical as quick as possible. So there'll be things that we'll do right together. You have a handout. It has a link that I may have made it not work when you get to that PDF, but we'll make sure you can get a copy there's a large handout for this morning session and another one for this that is bigger. But let's just dive in. So, you saw me talking about this idea that SWI is just a response to the idea that we should teach how the writing system works. And this idea of aligning the instruction and the orthography system. And I've been using this language that might well sound strange. Spelling meaning correspondences make sense of graphing phonic correspondences. Now, this is something that I'm trying just to get that language to become normal. Because one of the things that's so striking, I mentioned this morning that we often treat speech as if it's equivalent of pronunciation, but there's no such thing of speech that isn't pronunciation of meaning. And because writing systems represent both the pronunciation and the meaning, we can't understand it if we don't teach how that works. But we have institutional knowledge of graphing phonic correspondence, sound symbol correspondence, letter sound correspondence, and A is for apple and Z is for zoo, instructional phrases that tell you to attend, get those biological spotlights attending to the links between the letters on the page and the pronunciation. But the funny thing is, we don't have any instructional phrase I've ever heard outside of SWI where we talk about the link between spelling and meaning. And the irony about that is, as Sue just showed and as I was showing this morning, when you're in the morphology part, in English, spelling favors consistent spelling of the meaning elements over consistent spelling of the pronunciation units. And so it's a real problem if we don't even have a name for the most consistent part. I hadn't heard Sue say this before, that she calls it the foundation because it's the stable part. I'm going to be using that. That's so great. Now, I'm saying there's two kinds of spelling meaning correspondences. I did both this morning, but I really focused on the morphological spelling meaning correspondences, right? When Sue gave examples of the word mist, well, you don't know if I just said the M-I-S-T mist or the M-I-S-S-E-D mist. That's a spelling meaning correspondence. That ED writing T in mist, it's because you know it's a past tense that you know how to write it. That's a spelling meaning correspondence. And the other kind of spelling meaning correspondence is etymological. And I think these are the only two that we have. But it's a combination of those things. So what I want to do is dive right into spelling meaning correspondences from morphology, but in the context that we might see in a kindergarten class or something like that. This little activity, one of the major metaphors that we use in SWI, but it's not from SWI, it's already in the language of linguistics, is we always use this metaphor of families for language stuff. We have languages from the same family, right? The Japanese isn't in the same language family as English, right? But we have Indo-European languages. That's a family of languages because they all have the same what? The same origin. And when we talk about, when we go to kids, this is an activity that my friend WordTorque, who's got amazing stuff, she's one of the authors of this book that I think everybody should get, that is like just a pile of everyday words that you learn through the same way. And this is something I saw her do that I use all the time. And that is, you could go to a kindergarten class on day one, or you could do this in grade 8 on day one. It's particularly fun in kindergarten because they're going to be excited by seeing pictures of their teacher. And the analogy is that words come in families like people come in families. Now, if kids know anything, they know what a family is, right? So I'm going from the known to the unknown idea. And what Fiona does, and I'll just do here, is here's a picture of me and my immediate family. So my wife and my 2 kids. Now the kids might say, what do you mean immediate family? Well, you have people in your family that aren't your brother or your sister or your mom or dad. Who is in your family that isn't a brother or sister or mom or dad? Grandmas, uncles, aunts, cousins. So we know they're in our family, but it's a different kind of family, isn't it? That's what we call the extended family. So what Fiona does is she has all these pictures that she brings in. Now think how much your kindergartners are going to be excited to see the picture of their new teacher and their family and stuff, right? So then we just kind of play with these and say, well, these are pictures of people. They're either just my friends or they're in my family. And I'm going to show you how we walk through them. And so we say, well, this is my niece. She's the, what happened there? She's the daughter of my brother. So she isn't in my immediate family because we're not her parents. But what do my kids and my niece share? They share the same grandma. My mom is grandma to my kids and to my niece. Cousins share grandparents. Second cousins share great-grandparents. Third cousins share great-great-grandparents. And the idea when you are looking up your family tree, when you're trying to look up your family roots, the farther back you can go down your family tree, the farther back you can go into your roots, the bigger your extended family is. Well, if we're working with words, how cool is that? The farther back we go, the more words we get. I'm not saying any of this to the kids yet. I'm just saying, this is my friend. This is my, and we go through all this, we talk about them, and then we say, okay, so this is my immediate family. These are people in my extended family. What is it that means that they're in the extended family or in the immediate family? They have to share common family roots. And somebody asked, I was very good and didn't say anything. Important question about words like root and base we're going to talk about. But what I'm setting up right now is in SWI, it's true that people use the word root both for bases and even in linguistics. Some people will use what we call bound base, some people call it a root. But I'm going to argue that that's actually that's messy science, because science isn't supposed to have one word that can mean 2 totally different things. That's just bad science. Here's a question. If I asked you, what's the root of unhelpful, what would you probably say? Help. But actually, what if I meant the old English root, which if you look it up, it'll say helpin'. You don't know helpin' is the old English root of help. But if I treat the word root, whether as if it's either a morpheme, a present day English thing, then we get all confused. But nobody's confused. Nobody says I'm looking up the old Latin base. Nobody's looking up the old English base. They always use root for historical. The confusion is at the morphology side. So I'm going to say we're always going to use roots, and I'm planting that seed when I'm not even talking about words yet, because they have the same pattern. Now there's something else to see. I can have more than one immediate family in the same extended family. My brother's immediate family is also in my extended family. I won't tell the kids this right now, but I'm setting you guys up. These are rectangles, and that's an oval. The immediate family is the matrix. The extended family, I put in an oval. And you cannot be in the same immediate family if you don't have the same roots. Not only do cousins share the same grandma, so do siblings. So you get the relationship is really good. And here was the page I wanted to show you when people were talking about root and base. This is a picture from grade 1 class. And I often do this. If you look outside and you see the trees out there, what do you see? The base of the tree or the root of the tree? Well, you see the base of the tree, the trunk. But I can't see the roots of the trees out there, but I know they're there because if there weren't, it'd fall over. Every base has a root. And that's true of trees and it's true of words. And so now I can say, okay, the base we only use for this morphological bit. It's present day English. Roots are historical and they're not English. You can say they're between the plus signs and the word sum. They link morphological relatives and they're in the banner of the matrix. And they can always be traced back to a root. But the root is only etymological. Now, I tell people, you might run into people who call these other things roots, and I can't tell you they're wrong. Those are attested terms. But I'm going to recommend that we are under no obligation to continue poor science. Our job is to clean up the science. So let's use one word for one thing and not make it confusing. And it's not an English word. It's a historical source of present day words. And so we can start to get that idea. So now let's take all of that and put it into an activity. This is an image from that same school you saw the hop video, another kindergarten class, and they're playing what is like a basic game in SWI. I always call it the what's in the family game. And so the idea is we're going to have a base that is, now I don't use an oval here because we're doing a morphological family. I would normally, but I got the picture I got. But I recommend making this game with a rectangle. If what you're doing is you're looking for words that share a base, because the matrix is what shows that, right? So we're starting with the word play. That's the base P-L-A-Y. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, which of these words, we have all these words up here, which of them are connected in structure and meaning to our word play or our base P-L-A-Y? Now, if we take one of these, we can go, well, let's take the word, I don't know where am I playing. I'll take playful. Now, if I am going to say that P-L-A-Y is the base of playful, then I need to be able to take that base and add something and end up with the word playful. Right? So I don't even have to tell the kids the word suffix yet. I can just say, is there something I could add to P-L-A-Y to get to that spelling? What would I have to add? And if they know the letter names, they can say, what's after that? And we can write it before we think of it. We can just go, well, there's an F-U-L there. And if I put that there, I would end up with P-L-A-Y, playful. Okay, how do I know that's a suffix? What would I have to do to know there's a suffix FUL? I wonder. Wonderful. Once you can take playful, wonderful, helpful, I used that crazy big word earlier today, this combinatorial thing. You know what combinatorial is about, even if you've never heard or seen the word. What's combinatorial going to be about? Combining things. And so don't get scared by that big old term. This is only a suffix if it combines for the same purpose in more than one word. So I don't have to have been taught there's an FUL suffix to work out that there is one. Now we all know there's an FUL suffix, but the kindergartners don't. So I modeled the process. So this is, and now I have to do the meaning. So I've done the structure, but you guys were very playful out on I loved how you were so playful with the older kids today and everyone got along. That was beautiful. You were to play outside. So you start using the oral stuff and we see it's connected in structure and meaning. So playful goes in the family. What's one that doesn't? I like this one. There's just nothing you can add to FUL to get to plain. Like the spelling, there's no, right? But why do I put plain there? Say plain. You hear play and plain. But it's not helpful to notice the play and plain because it doesn't have a spelling meaning correspondence. And so we have to distinguish those pieces. So P-L-A-I-N, like a plain paper bag, it doesn't work in structure and it doesn't work in meaning. It is not in the family. You have to do both each time. If I do replay, what is that? Oh, did you see the game last night? What did they do? I think I just saw a thing that I think the Habs won in overtime last night. And what do they do when they show that winning goal? They show the replay. You play it again. You could redo something. You could tie your shoes because they fell apart. You just start and see what I'm doing with my fists? As I'm talking, I'm showing oral morphology, and I'm using 2 fingers for a prefix, fist for a base, and 2 fingers after for a suffix. You have to realize you're doing it for the people in front of you. It's backwards to me. It's right. But so I'm just building up their oral awareness of stuff they already know. And now I don't add a prefix. I don't add a suffix. I add an RE that fixes before the PLAY. Prefix. You can have prefixes. They fix in front, like preschool. When you're in preschool, it's before you go to the real school. Did you ever go to a movie and you see the preview of the next? You get to view the movie before. So remember what I was talking about? We already have this oral language in our head. All I'm doing is making explicit that oral language right now with just my fists and fingers, but then I just take my fists and fingers and turn them into written morphemes. And so now I can say replay. I'm going to play it again. Yes, connected in structure and meaning. But the LAY, wait a second, LAY, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe LAY is the base, because I see that in play. But if I did my word sum, to say LAY is the base, I have to have evidence of a P prefix, because otherwise it doesn't combine. I'm going to tell you I have no evidence of prefix. I do not think there's a prefix. It doesn't matter if there is or isn't. What matters is nobody in this room has evidence of one, so we can't say it's a prefix. So lay is not related, and by the way, the meaning is not connected. Of course, I have a thing here like fun, where we can say it's fun to play. So there seems to be a meaning connection, but it's not a meaning and structure connection. And so when you play this game, I think of this game, it's like the Sesame Street game, which one doesn't belong. And it's only fun if you have words that are productive foils, words that seem to have the same meaning, but not related, have the same spelling, but not related. So you have to have this ability of falsifying things for the game to work. And then how about Playhouse? Does Playhouse, is it connected in structure and meaning? Is it in the family? Because the rule is, do you have a base? What's the name of the base? Nope. I'm being mean. It's the word play, but it's the base PLAY. Everybody tap that out like I did. How many times did I tap? How many letters? So why did I put the AY together and not the P and the L? Because the AY is a digraph. But I didn't put the PL together. Why not? Now people have trouble with this because they've learned about blends and they have PLs in their head, so they go PL. But if you spell play PLAY, you're treating them both like they're digraphs. And so we need to be able to we need to know what are the graphemes. And so this PLAY, and the other thing is now I don't know any other shift in pronunciation of this base, but I don't have to think about it now, because if I was doing SAY, I don't get confused when I get into the word says. Because says has an SAY no matter how it's pronounced. There's a quote from Carol Chomsky in 1970 that is awesome. I'm paraphrasing, but she points out that children could be productively introduced to the idea that a morpheme doesn't have a pronunciation until it's in a word. So this idea of spelling first, and I was having a great conversation with somebody earlier, by going PLAY, you are fixing the orthography in the head. How many ways are there to spell A? If I go A, how do you help me remember how to spell the A? There's like 10 ways to spell A. And we got an AI right there, so we also learned about an AI digraph from a foil, because plain would be PLAIN. So you can go, what I want you to see is this looks like morphology, but the grapheme phoneme correspondences are bedded all the way through, and it's constant practice. Now, So we can do all this stuff. So in your workshop book, I think it's in page 3.
I'm sorry, you said morphology doesn't have
A morpheme, based on an affix, doesn't have a pronunciation until it's in a word. And it's an important idea to pause on. If I write the word jumped, what suffix is there? Let me do another way. Say the word assignment. You know the word assignment? What's the suffix in assignment? No native English speaker ever says, I have an assignment to do. I have an assignment. If I was going to pronounce that suffix in that word, I should say "ment." But I played a trick on you, we have a phonological memory of the word meant, so we just go to meant. But that's an M-E-A-N-T. But if I call it an M-E-N-T suffix, you are fixing the spelling no matter how it's pronounced. Sometimes it's pronounced another way. What is the suffix in the end of jumped? Nobody ever says the t suffix. I've never heard any teacher call the ed suffix of jumped t. We figured it out with the ed and the s. They're so common and they have such different pronunciations that we came up, without anybody telling us, with a great scheme. Oh, let's not call those suffixes by one of their pronunciations. Let's call it by its consistent spelling, that foundation that Sue was talking about. And we do it for every morpheme, and that way you are building up your graphemes and your morphemes as you do it. So here's your first task today. We have this HOP base. This is like what we saw the kids do, but I've made more tricky ones. Before I let you have a go, what's a word here that clearly has the structure and meaning of the HOP base? What's one that's in the family you're confident?
hops.
Could you spell that one for me?
H-O-P-S.
Oh, good. That was amazing. I didn't hear the right word. I thought you said hopped, which would have been fine, but you said hops.
Hops.
But see, the pronunciation is so missable, but the spelling isn't. So hops, could you spell it for me?
H-O-P-S.
Right. I'm going to spell it a little bit different. You ready? And this is a great comedy bit for your kids. Let's say you're in grade 1, and you just spelled it H-O-P-S, and we can see it's H-O-P-S, and then I say to the kindergartners, oh, that's very good, but I spell it differently. What are you talking about? It's spelled that way. I spell it H-O-P-S. Everybody spell it that way.
H-O-P-S.
What did I do? I only tapped the graphemes in the base. I didn't tap the affix, which means you have to think about the morphemes and the graphemes. This tapping out process I just find so valuable. So HOPS is in the family because it has the base HOP, and I didn't really do it. You should always make the word sum is rewritten as HOPS because now this was tapping out, this was typing out, better writing out. But you are doing them together, and so there's hops, I hop, she hops. I always now have to put it into a sentence, which means I'm activating your syntactic thinking. Every time we talk about a word, the kids either have to put it in a sentence, and if they struggle, I put it into a sentence. I'm teaching them what syntax is without even using that big old word. Now, what's one that definitely doesn't fit? Jump. Now you can see why I picked jump. Because it means something like hop, but doesn't have an HOP, not in the family. One more. Hoped. Okay, could you spell that one for me? Okay. There it is, H-O-P-E. And that one's in or out?
Out.
Out. And here's how we find out. You have an H-O-P-E base. Well, you can't add anything. You can't get, you have an 8, always test with, I did that wrong. We're trying to see which of these words have this base, so when I shut up in a second and let you go, always start your word sum with the base you're testing. Because what would we need for that base to result in that spelling? You'd need to have evidence of an E suffix. And I'm just going to relieve your brain from Searching forever, I've never found any evidence of an E suffix in English. I call it a final non-syllabic E. It's not my language, but I like it. Single silent E, same thing. You can't do that. And by the way, hoping and hopping aren't related. So you're right. Hope doesn't belong.
Do you tap out the E?
H-O-P-E. Good question. Because it's a grapheme. Now, this is huge. The single silent E. Nobody ever mentions that it's a grapheme. It's called silent. Or I call it non-syllabic. It's the best evidence that graphemes don't have to write pronunciations. And like Sue was saying earlier, if your schema from the time you're in kindergarten, think of the phrase letter-sound correspondence. What's the letter-sound correspondence of the E? What was the letter-sound correspondence of the W? There wasn't. So we cannot understand a writing system if we are not taught from the beginning. Yes, one of the most important jobs of graphemes is writing phonemes. The only thing that writes phonemes are graphemes. But that does not mean that the only things graphemes do is write phonemes. I can say cats have 4 legs, but that doesn't mean all things with 4 legs are cats. Graphemes are the only things that write phonemes, but that does not mean that the only things graphemes do is write phonemes. This is a final non-syllabic E that is, in this case, signaling, doing a couple of things. One thing is it's telling me about the pronunciation of the O, which is one of its many jobs, but it's also making sure it doesn't get confused for hop. It's doing more than one thing at a time, so hope is definitely not in the family. And I'm just gonna do, I gotta do one more that I can, well, I'm going to ask in case you guys pick it. What's one that you think would be a good challenge for kids? So, which is hoping? Spell hoping for me. Nice. Watch how I can tap it out. H-O-P, replace the E, I-N-G. Now, when I asked you to spell it for a very important reason. Imagine you're a kid in the class and you said hoping. Because I know how to spell hoping, I just think that's what you were looking at. But imagine the kid who was looking at that word and thought it was hoping. They just go, phew, they didn't catch me. So you gotta get them to spell to know that that's what they mean. And I also want them to get in the habit that you always spell, and you are going to fix the orthography, the orthographic mapping, more effectively if you draw their attention to the graphemes. There's so many ways to write O, right? If I go hoping, O, P, I, or something like that, how do I know how to write that O? How do I know how many P's? So the spelling out is just a great way of getting that. So you are saying the word hoping, but you pointed out the base is H-O-P-E. And then we add our ing, and now I get to tell you something, and I could tell this to grade 1s who don't know, they're still learning how to read, they're still learning all sorts of things, they don't know suffixing changes. I'm not going to teach you right now the total conventions for replacing E's, but what I can teach you right now, oh, this is a cool one. We were talking about wonder and wonderful and play and playful, and we did those. Sometimes when you add a suffix to a base or a stem, it can force a change to that spelling. And one of the things you're going to have to know is sometimes single silent E, final non-syllabic E, sometimes those will be replaced by a suffix. So I have H-O-P, replace the E, I-N-G. So that word doesn't have an H-O-P base, it has an H-O-P-E base. So I needed to get to that one to give you 5 minutes, and your job is to work with a partner and to just decide on your own which of these words do you think go in the family and which go outside. And if you are unsure, what you do is you put it on the line. The most exciting ones are the ones you're not sure about, put them on the line. Go. Oh, there should be. Yeah. H-O-P-E. And the reason that's so important is that we have to understand that I'm tapping graphemes or doubled graphemes in the base. I'm not tapping pronunciations. And that's how you learn that graphemes don't have to write pronunciations.
I'm not in the classroom right now, but I've heard that they often tap for sound.
Yeah, I know.
So,
If you tap for sounds or phonemes, just do it in another way.
okay.
Just make sure they're very different.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah. That's a key question we need to bring up.
Okay, maybe you're gonna get to this.
Yeah.
Do you have a scope and sequence?
No.
Of like start here.
No, but I have lots of suggestions about that question. But bring up the scope and sequence question for the group because it's an important one.
Okay.
And you need to do word sums, and you should write them out loud when you're doing it. Question? Question?
I think you're out of worksheets, right?
Oh, I didn't see it. Oh.
Okay.
So you can do it on a piece of paper, sorry. But I'm going to make sure that people have access to all of my handouts by email.
Do you take Venmo for your book?
I don't, but just take a card, email me, and say you took a book. And then I'll send you an invoice by email.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Because I can't take Venmo because I'm Canadian, and I can't mail the books because I'm Canadian. So I trust you just to email me, say, hey, I took a book from the conference.
All right. I'm having trouble understanding your tapping technique. So
Yes.
Can you explain that a
So,
little bit?
yeah.
Say for instance, see, I know these because I'm
Yeah.
doing it the other way.
Yeah.
But I want to understand
Yeah.
how you're teaching.
So watch how I do Hopper.
Uh-huh.
HOPPER. Now, I've said it, but most people haven't heard it.
Right.
I give one tap for every grapheme or doubled grapheme in the bass.
So if the P only gets one.
The double P, it gets one tap. There's something that's setting you up for later. I'll tell you now, but don't worry about it, is that the first P is a grapheme writing the P, and the second P is one of these graphemic markers that is there to tell you about the structure. It's not a double P digraph. It's a P that's doubled, but I want to bind that, and that's the language, and I might not tell everybody this question, but I'm gonna say every time I try to anyway, I give one tap for every grapheme or doubled grapheme in the bass. And that's why I did that.
Then my other question was, when you were tapping, you were saying when you say if you're thinking hope or ha, there's more than one way to do right?
Yeah.
So how do I know when
Because we're looking at the word. It's HOP.
So this is always from a word that you can visually see.
And now watch this. Go HOP.
HOP.
How do you pronounce that O in hop? I'm asking. How do you pronounce it? Oh, so the O in hop is writing aw. See, I give you the scaffolding of what the graphemes are to help you identify the phoneme.
So, and that's
It's not in place of. I need to talk, exactly. And I need to talk about this with everybody, this principle, because I know it's different. But I need people to see that I'm scaffolding, identifying the graphemes. Okay, guys, I know that I'll run out of time. So I'm going to interrupt you, being mean. Is there a word you weren't sure where to place? Is there a word you'd like me help you place so you're confident? Yeah. Bellhop. All right. Now, I love this word here. One thing somebody might say is, why on earth are you giving kindergartners or grade 1s or 3s or whatever bellhop? Why do they don't need to know bellhop. It's true. Bellhop is not a high frequency important word that I must teach them. But my job, and we did this with the study I showed you this morning, that's the lessons from that book, is to teach you in such a way that you can learn words I didn't teach you. That's the whole point of teaching. That's the whole point. So I know that kids are likely to know the word bell, and likely to know the word hop, and likely not to know what a bellhop is. So they ask me, like you just did. And now I get to say, well, there's no reason you should know that word. Maybe one day you're lucky, your parents take you to a fancy hotel, and you go to the desk, they get the key, and a funny dude in a hat hops up and they take you to your room. It's a bell hop. You ring the bell, they hop. Now, normally you would run into that in a story, in which case you can talk about the character in the story that was the bellhop. So watch how I tap that out. Listen carefully. One tap for every grapheme or doubled grapheme in the bass. BELLHOP. I tapped all the way through, it's all base. I pause, but you see, if I don't tap the affixes, which I never do, then you know if I'm tapping, I'm telling you I'm in a base. And that becomes a game in the class that kids are attending to in a detailed way. Oh yeah, biological spotlights, I want them to look carefully when I say do something that surprises them. Now, my friend over here was asking about this tapping because there's a lot of confusion because people have other practices of tapping of phonemes or maybe syllables, and I actually count syllables and I count them in a different way. I count them on the back of my hand, but I make sure that if I'm tapping for graphemes or doubled graphemes, I do it in one place. If you want to tap for phonemes or syllables or something else, just make sure you don't do it in the same way. Now, I want you to understand, imagine everyone have a go at tapping out the word teach. Tap it out. Now notice, we tapped all the way through, so it's a base. T-E-A-C-H. Now, if a kid taps out teach, T-E-A-C-H, you know they don't recognize the graphemes. They're thinking in letters like the kid who had trouble with hop and shop. It's information. I know what they're doing. If I go T-E-A-C-H, they only would have done that if they thought of the phoneme E and the phoneme Ch. The tapping out is scaffolding to tell you what the graphemes are before you have to guess what they link to. A lot of people think that I'm ignoring phonology and they're missing the point. You can't know what the graphemes are without thinking about what the phonemes are. And so it's not instead of linking to phonemes, it's a means of making that link. Yeah?
I might have missed it, but if it's the word hopping, you tap the H-O-double-P.
Yeah, H-O-double-P.
And then do you keep ing together?
Ah, excellent. Excellent. Yes, I announce the affixes, the suffixes, prefixes quickly as a group. But I'm glad you raised that because if I did fighting, I would go F-I-G-H-T, I-N-G. I'm not saying ing is a trigraph. I'm saying the IGH is a trigraph. But I don't even try to tell you what the graphemes are in the affixes because I want to bind affixes as a group too. It's all about binding these units because if I say jumpin', I can say jumpin' and it's still ing. I don't have to pronounce it the same way. I just have ing becomes an automate. Everything about literacy is automating the little bit so you don't have to think about them, right? So that's a very helpful question.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
At what point in the process do you attach sound?
All the way through. When I go H-O-P, we're linking the H to the H and the O to the A and the P to the P.
So they already know.
They don't have to know, I tell them in the moment. So when I did teach just now, I had you tap it out. I didn't do it very carefully because I say, okay, well you did T-E-A-C-H, what is the T writing in teach? T. What's the E-A writing? And the C-H? So then you can go T-E-Ch, teach. But when I did the tapping for you, if you look at the word on the board, the letters have space. You can't tell what the graphemes are by looking at it. If I give you that scaffolding, I say T-E-A-C-H. When I say how do you write the E that you hear in teach, you know it's got to be the E-A. So I'm always asking you what about the phonemes and the graphemes. I probably was rushing and didn't do it as clear enough. But you notice when I gave you the EA, if I asked you how do you write the EA and E, what phoneme does the EA in teach represent? It's writing the E phoneme. So what I'm trying to be clear about is the words don't come with little flags telling you what the graphemes and the morphemes are. They're just sequences of letters. And what our job as the teacher is to make the implicit explicit. So I'm making the graphemes explicit before I force you to tell me what you think the phonemes are that they link to. And I'm going to do that with a word like make, where the E isn't writing anything. M-A-K-E. So then when you get to the E, well, what's it writing? Well, I guess it's not writing anything. It is telling me about the pronunciation of the O. And in the word please, P-L-E-A-S-E, what's that E doing? Telling me it's not more than one plea. It's a grapheme that has a spelling meaning correspondence. It has no grapheme phoneme correspondence. It's not, the single silent E is definitionally not writing a pronunciation. But we still got to understand it as a grapheme. I know that's a lot. I will tell you, little used car salesman, I do have a course in spelling out coming up that I think is good. Now, I'm not going to do this one, but I want to show you that that activity we could do with much bigger words. Here's a quick question. We won't do it all for time, but which of these words shares a base with that word? Well, I'm going to ruin the game for you because you people will see, oh, I can have imagines and I can have imaginary, but you can't add anything to imagine to get to imageable. But I just said it very differently here. In this one, I said, which of these words have the base HOP? But here I said, which of these words shares a base with imagine? I didn't call imagine a base. And now you might realize that, hey, wait a second, maybe it's I-M-A-G-E with an I-N-E suffix. And that would be replace the E. Oh, if you can imagine something, you can make a good image in your head. If you've got a good imagination, you're great at making images. So it would have been no problem if you treated imagine as a base and you just decided that words like, where is it? Imagery and imageable. On your go, you might have treated these as cousins. Words that have the same root but not the same base. And you're not harming anybody. They are related, but they don't have the same base. If you don't know there's an I-N-E suffix. But you can learn that later. So one of the messages with this, why I wanted to show you this one, please don't worry about being an expert to start. It's fine to not get to the bottom. The only thing I encourage you to do your best to avoid is misteaching a morpheme. It's problematic, as I showed you, to treat action as if it has a T-I-O-N suffix, because then you can't see the act. You can't see the ACT. How many people in this room have ever taught your kids that asking a question is going on a quest for knowledge? It was a week after I saw my first matrix that I'm sitting in my classroom. I saw the word question on a sign I made because I had a question wall of fame in my classroom forever. I looked at it and I thought, quest! Which and questioning inquiry was central to my instruction my whole life. I'd never seen the quest. Because if you think question, you can't see the quest. Now, I want to show you that you have in your works, these are categories of, these columns are useful words for this what's in the family game that has foils and has relatives, and then look how big you can go. Right? You have the answer key for this one because I gave you that science net, that SCI net. But so I just want the same activities, doesn't matter, you just address it at the age that makes sense. So these are examples of what I didn't know I had a question there. Spelling meaning correspondences from morphology. I know that this Q-U-E-S-T is spelled the same whether it's pronounced quest or questch. No problem. And I can link it to conquest. And look at this, ask, seek, gain. Well, in conquest, you're not doing much asking, but you are doing seeking and gaining. Questioning, you are asking. I never heard this whispering or shouting, and I highly recommend, one of the things that Sue does so great is the orthographic denotation. That is just so important. And you see that these things that we actually teach, they're just like the rest of them. Why teach these two morphemes, have more than one pronunciation, rather than use them as the launching pad to understand that morphemes don't have a pronunciation until they're in a word, so that we'll always have our biological spotlights on the lookout for spelling meaning correspondences. Now, I said there's also spelling meaning correspondences from etymology. Now, we got to see this one earlier today, and check it out. When I take this word to, we have a grapheme T and O, T-O, and I can link them directly to their phonemes, the T and the U. The T writes T, the O writes U. In this to, for I like ice cream too, I have a T double O. Now the T is writing T and the O is writing U. Good thing they're not spelled the same. That would be confusing. I do this with preschoolers and they see it would be confusing if you spelled homophones the same because they're different words. They only get called irregular after teachers have been taught that spelling is a sound representation system. Now, look at this one. We have the T writing the T, the O writing the U. What's the W writing? It's writing meaning. It's not writing sound. And it, as we saw, it was linked to these words. And I'm going to tell you that a grapheme that represents no phonology is actually got a name. Vanessa calls them a marker. I really recommend you call it a graphemic marker because I used to not think they were graphemes, and so I'm trying to undo that. Graphemic markers is when you have a grapheme that's not writing a phoneme. Now, if you want to, I have this Facebook group, and I just had the most lovely story from a tutor who, I like this story because this TWO story has kind of escaped, but when it's taught, it's usually taught as a mnemonic device to help you learn one word. It's better than having you memorize two and being told that it's irregular, but as soon as you, he went down this whole trail, I won't go into that now, but if you follow that, you can find this document. Twitch doesn't belong in the family was the best bit. The teacher didn't know the answer, went into Etym Online with the kid and discovered that his hypothesis of Twix and Twilight worked. Twix is from betwixt and between. It's the only chocolate bar that comes in twos. Twilight is between day and night. Twitch has nothing to do with two-ness. You could come up with a hypothesis, you twitch, you go back and forth, but you can go to etymology, and this teacher who did not know the answer when the kid asked the question, they got to find it together. For a dyslexic kid to ask the question that the teacher didn't know the answer to, and the teacher looked with them and they learn it together, you can't get your kids more attention than that. They will remember. And they will remember the word that doesn't belong. And I love this little touch. See what the teacher did? Little underline of the TCH trigraph. Something that you get to teach on the side from the foil.
Does twine work again?
It does. But you could find it out by looking it up and you'll see it goes back and it's about two threads wound around each other. Twig too. But how about wood? Well, good thing it's not spelled like that wood. So right off the bat, the homophone principle is so powerful. Even if you can't explain the spelling, just pointing out that, well, good thing it's not spelled like the other word that sounds like that, because that would be confusing. That's already better than saying annoying. But here's the graphemes. W-O-U-L-D and W-O-O-D, right? Bases. What's that L doing? You cannot understand the L in wood unless you think of relatives like should and could. This L is referencing its relative will and shall. Now, can doesn't do that. But this could, these are all these, what is subjunctive? Is that the word for them? The type of word, no, what's the word? Anyways, escaping. But they're the same, I would do it, I should do it, I could do it. That L links them. It's a grapheme, a spelling meaning correspondence from etymology. And if you only teach the W and two, it doesn't become a system that you can look for everywhere. Everyone write down the word people. And then try to tap it out. Which brave soul is going to give us your hypothesis of tapping out the base, the word, I should say, people. It is a base. Anyone want to have a go? Okay, I'll do it. I would tap it out, P-E-O-P-L-E. What might have surprised somebody there? People often talk about an EO. You can't find an EO for the phoneme E in any other word. It doesn't combine, it ain't a digraph. Why? Can you think of another word that might help you remember why there's an O in people? Popular, population. If you go to Etym Online or Etymology Dictionary, you look up people, it gets you to a root, populus. You put populus in there, you get these other words. Oh, that's why the O's there. Why would we deny that spelling meaning correspondence if you have seen dyslexic kids just weeping and parents freaked out? Why does spelling not make sense? Those sight words are devastating for so many kids. I don't mean sight words like that. I mean the words you memorize. Why would we not give them this? Because we don't know it. So I just need you to see that. Now, here's a little activity on page 3. I'm going to debate what I do with you, but I wanted to show you a focus on phonology. I showed you a focus on morphology, a focus on etymology. On page, maybe it's not page 3. I think it's right near the back. Yeah, it's on page, where is it? Well, maybe I didn't even put it in. I thought it's in there. It may not be, but I'll just show you anyways. I apologize. So here's a story I was asked to work on with a kid in a class. Page 9? It doesn't matter what the story is, but I make the first task circle the letter S. I can do that with a class where the kids don't even know the alphabet yet. This could be their first learning of the letter S, and kids could read it, and their job is to circle the S. But notice I called that a letter. Now, here's these words with the grapheme S bolded, and what do you notice? Shields doesn't have an S. I'm getting right to graphemes now and the distinction. And then you can have an activity where the kids have to say the words, and I would have to make sure they know these words beforehand, and we would work on that together. But sans is a cool one. I need one in both because one of the S's writes S and the other writes Z. And I can put shields. Where does shields go? It goes under the Z. How would you do this activity if you didn't have symbols for S and Z? You can't put S and Z there because there's no Z's here. It's S's writing Z. And we can put has over here, and we can put slits. Both of them are there, and stop. So you get the point. So, and all of these were just words taken from a little book, like that paragraph. I can just take the graphemes, investigate them, notice the difference. Now, that I would have had the shields. Ooh, everyone type out shields. It's cool. S-H-I-E-L-D-S. Now we're focusing on the SH, but I just introduced an IE digraph. And what phoneme is the IE writing in shield? E, like in ceiling. So you see that same process is happening all the time, and every time I prove it, I show that I don't use this word with the kids, but I'm using it with you, I have to show that it's combinatorial. If I can't find an EI for the E phoneme in another word, I can't tell you it's a grapheme. Yeah?
When you did people, why would you not do LE together?
Ah, good question. Table, crumble, fumble, jumble. Table. What? How many syllables in table?
2.
Table. Why can't we write table? Didn't want to pick up the red. How come I can't write, when you're wondering why something is there, I recommend you write it without, but I put the asterisk first, T-A-B-L. How come I can't write table that way?
You have to have a vowel.
Now, I'm going to say this in a very specific way. The way I say that convention is, for every syllable you perceive in a word, you should expect there to be at least one vowel letter. And that's a very helpful thing. So this E is not there. It's not writing a phoneme. It's there for that convention. Now, there's a whole bunch behind this. The L The ul is a liquid. There's all sorts. There's a vowel-y consonant. Don't worry about that. I still say it's a single letter grapheme L and a single letter grapheme E. And that now you can talk about jumble and crumble and fumble, and also words like theater and center. The one we were talking before, the E at the end of center there is for the syllable. So I wanted to at least get a focus on morphology, a focus on etymology, and here's a focus on phonology. We're doing all of them all the time. You had a question?
Can you help me? Like, I bought into this, right? Like, I want to do this. If I was going to bring this back to my school, is this something that we're doing with reading instruction, outside of reading instruction? I've heard you say a few times, like, okay, before we do this, students are already reading these words. So do you?
Oh, I said I did a lot of this without them having read it first. Like this whole activity, circling the S, a non-reader could do that, and they need to practice finding the S. And
Yes, I'm just trying to see, like, how does this
Yeah.
fit, and is there a scope and
Yeah.
sequence? Do you choose words based on your curriculum?
yeah, so the question has to do with how do you integrate this with something you're doing, or is there a scope and sequence to this, and how do you manage that? And it's a very important question. What I say is, no, I haven't put out, and I don't know anybody who has, an SWI scope and sequence. Somebody could, but the thing I argue is, why does it need to be a scope and sequence? Like when you teach the multiplication tables doesn't have a scope and sequence. You just got to learn your multiplication tables, right? This is the writing system. You figure out how you want to teach it. So if you have a scope and sequence, I would argue integrate this into it. And one thing that I'm really glad you're helping remind me to say is I don't want anybody leaving my morning session or this session and thinking, oh no, what do I have to stop doing? That's not what I want you to worry about. I know people who think I said things that I didn't say, and they're surprised when I do something. Oh, I didn't think you did that. No, well, my point is that if you have seen something that helps you explain a spelling that you couldn't previously explain, then if your scope and sequence tells you to say does is irregular, well, that's a place where you can integrate this and make your curriculum better. And what I really want you is to not drop things until you know what you're replacing them with. So if you start working with these concepts that, oh, graphemes don't have to write phonemes, that's in your head now. You can see when you might be able to use that. That these matrices and word sums are helping you understand things. So start playing with them before you're perfect at them. And just integrate it into what you're doing, and over time, you can decide what aspects of your instruction or your program are you going to drop, but you're not dropping them because some Canadian came down and told you drop it. You're dropping it because you realize, I don't really even do that anymore. Like, that's the thing that I see teachers do, is like, whoa, I used to do something all the time and I suddenly realized I'm not doing it. That's the best way to drop it, because you realize you didn't need it because you now have something to replace it with. Yeah. Why should it be? But why should? Yeah. So let me give you something that I got from Michelle. It's so wonderful. I was asked, why? The question is, why is it table an LE rather than an EL? There's a whole bunch of things, but try to write the word tablet. Right? But on top of that, here was this, if I was at a conference and somebody asked, but how do you spell the bases? That's often a question, but how do you get to the bases? And I actually Zoomed with Michelle. This is my very first, the real spelling guy. And so we had him Zoom in, and the teacher asked that, and he said, well, what's the word? So he says purple. And so Michelle always starts with meaning. So, well, I could say on this picture, Pete's face looks a bit purplish. Instantly put it into another word. Purplish, ISH replaces the E. But then he said, if you have a pronunciation ul at the end of a base, at the end of a word, if it's a suffix, it will mostly be an AL. It could be an EL. There's an EL suffix, like in panel. But most of the time, that ul, if it's a suffix, will be spelled AL. If it's in the base, it'll be LE. So you see how you link those things? So I know I'm going to have to go. I'm going to say one thing. If you're interested in stuff, come up. I didn't get to show you the sentence matrix. You have some stuff in there. And this video walks you through it that you can find on my website. It's a new tool that I'm very excited about that takes the same principles of looking at how the parts fit together, but now instead of doing it with morphemes, we can do it with phrases that build sentences, and it's really changing my understanding of sentences. So I will leave it there, and I'm happy to talk with people afterwards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.